Do you want to bring balance to all the wireless radiation fields in your life, including 5G? The Omnia Radiation Balancer is a small sticker you can stick on any device. It changes the state of the field and creates a new resonance between the wireless radiation and your energy field. On the link below, you'll see all our testing results that show how the body responds excellently once you've made this change in your life. And here's a special offer for the Journey to Truth crowd. Just enter the word truth in caps at the checkout for your 10% discount. It's easy to bring balance back to your body with the Omnia Radiation Balancer.
This is totally unreal that this happened like in 1942 on this planet.
Warning, the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey guys, welcome back to Secret Space Program Month. Tonight we are joined by Rebecca Rose. We discovered Rebecca through Nicole Frolick's podcast. Her and Nicole are good friends, and she's done some amazing interviews with Nicole. I highly recommend going to check those out. We're going to get into a lot of that testimony tonight. And we're going to get a lot deeper. We have some more time, so we're really going to break this down. And testimonies like hers are really important because she has memories going all the way back from childhood. You know, she was a lifelong abductee who was taken into a dark government program as a child and then eventually taken off-world to serve in the programs. So we're going to start off from the early childhood and then work our way into her time in the programs. We're really excited to get into that. But before we get started, just all you guys know, there's all this big tech purge going on, and everyone's getting spread out on all these different platforms. So we have a link tree now with all 500 platforms we're on now. Yeah. You can find us all over the place. Just to name a few: Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, which is, if anything happens to our Twitter, Telegram is going to be our go-to. It seems to be that's where a lot of people are migrating right now. Pill.net is a new one we're kind of feeling out. BitChute, Rumble, iTunes, Spotify, just to name a few. So make sure you follow us, keep up with us. Again, thank you all for the donations we've been receiving. Thank you for all your support through these times right now. We just got a comment the other day that was just moving.
Really good.
It was really good, and it's stuff like that that keeps us going. So thank you guys for everything.
Yes, thank you guys.
You just listened to the Omnia commercial, so we have that promo code going for 10% off with promo code TRUTH, all caps. If you don't know what that is, it's a patch you can't really see, but we have them on our microphones. You put them on any radiating device, it harmonizes the frequency and turns it into something beneficial for your body. I finally put one on my laptop the other day, and to my surprise, my laptop used to get extremely hot all the time. I put it on the computer, and I was like, Aaron, I was like, it's not getting hot anymore. I couldn't believe it. I cannot believe how it keeps your device, how cool it kept it. Hopewell Farm CBD, we have that promo code going, JTT15 for 15% off. And that, I'm not sure how long that's going to go, but that does stack with free shipping for any purchase over $200 or more. So you can use that code in tandem with that. And then we have 20% off our Teespring merchandise with promo code Sleepy Joe, and that will go indefinitely. And I think that's it. Oh, and then Starseed Adventures Conference, we'll get into that more at the end, but tickets are still available for that. We will be there hanging out, Cocoa Beach, Florida in March. Tickets are extremely limited, so make sure you grab yourself a ticket and come hang out with us on the beach. That being said, welcome to the show, Rebecca. How's it going?
Hey, it's good to be here during this, kind of chaotic time. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
This has been a really exciting month for us, getting in, interviewing these whistleblowers, really getting deep, trying to shed light on what's happening. And it's just really important. This is important information that needs to get out. It needs to get into the collective, because when disclosure comes, people are going to be turning to places like this and people like you for guidance, and they're going to want to know. People are going to be angry. They want answers. So if we can get this stuff out there now and just kind of like prime the collective, I think it's important. So let's jump right in and go from childhood. If you want to briefly introduce yourself and then take us through what happened and how you got involved in this program.
Yeah, well, Tyler, you guys, it's always hard to know where to jump in because there's I guess it's the very beginning of my life. There's so many, these stories, I'm sure you've learned from your last two guests, are so complex, or at least mine is. But like almost to the point of being overwhelmingly complex. But let's see. Yeah, where do we start? I guess we could talk about, like you said, my family and how did all this begin? I was my father worked for Lockheed Martin with a top secret clearance from before the time I was born, and he was also they vetted him out of the military, the Army, in the late 60s, also with a top secret clearance in the Army, and he later had also top secret clearance with the Navy while I was growing up. So it was through my dad and also my godfather, really, that I was taken in. My godfather, my dad's friend who worked with him at Lockheed, they were both buddies in top secret work, top secret clearance. I'm probably not going to jump into that right away, but I would say there's a lot to say on both of them. Like, wow. My godfather, I guess I would just say, was we could say my main handler, much more than my father was.
Well,
where do I start?
So what does that look like? Your godfather being your handler, how does that happen?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I was basically given to him when I was born, and when I was 4, I'm jumping us all right off the deep end here. When I was 4 years old, I remember leaving our house in southern New Hampshire, waving to my mom, and I was taken to what we thought was going to be a pretty girl photo shoot, and it was a child pornography shoot. Mm. From there, I was then, through my experiences with my godfather he was involved with me for 7 years of my life, first 7 years. And a lot of that is still blank for me, but he was my link into Montauk, and the whole milab experiences opened up in many ways due to him, but also because there was already gray interference with the grays started when I was at least 3, 3 years old. And my father is I would call him a Zeta hybrid. He passed away in 2020. And that's when I started getting massive dumps of information about the space program after his death. Like before his death, I really couldn't. I think it just wasn't safe. My dad, to my small, vulnerable self, I kind of didn't want to know when he was still alive, even though I'd had blips and blurbs of lots of things over my lifetime. It really was like a deluge after he passed away.
So he passed away recently in 2020?
March 2020.
So so a lot of these memories are recent. They're fairly new. They're coming back.
And I should say I am still really in process with all this. This is an unfolding story that's been going on for a couple of years, with the memory retrieval in a hardcore way. But I'm in no way, I don't want to lead your audience into thinking that I am have a tidy box with a bow on it that has my story in it, because it's messy and it's nonlinear and there's so much to it. Yeah. So I'm still in memory retrieval. I want to share that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I understand that. Actually, my mom passed away, and immediately, like a switch, I started having experiences and stuff happening to me. So there's something that takes place, that occurs when a death happens in the family like that. So I understand that. Yeah.
It's remarkable. It's been really mind-blowing, really mind-blowing. And my godfather is slated to, he moved down. I moved down to where I live now. I'm in a really unlikely place where you'd never expect to find me on the border of Mexico. And I moved down here 4 years ago because I knew I had a journey to make with my father. I didn't know exactly what it was. This is that journey. He's gone now, but my godfather moved down here. Weirdly, he lives like a quarter mile from me over the hill. And I made a video recently about some of the childhood stuff about him too, on my YouTube channel. The day I recorded that, he was helivaced out of here with heart failure. I
Wow,
thought that was fascinating. Where I'm going with that is that he's going to pass away soon. And there's going to be, because of the significant role he played, there will be even more of a, ongoing data dump from my memory fields.
So take us back.
That seems to be how it works.
Yeah. So take us back to the childhood. So you were taken to this child pornography shoot.
Yeah. What happened? Well, we know this, and this is timely to talk about, in that so much of this is coming up for the collective now. We're being aware now that there's a lot of strategic entanglement that goes on. Within their work, they were, I think my father included to some extent, were with a top secret clearance. This is used as a kind of blackmail. Once you're in it, you can't get out of it, and you can't say anything about it. They use it as a way to meet and discuss business in some ways. It's kind of hard to talk about, I think. But through that mechanism, there's a lot of, the space programs want kids who can dissociate. So that all of these traumas were beginning as soon as I was in my mother's stomach. As I was being gestated, there was a lot of trauma already happening, and that creates a kid that is easily dissociatable. So you're leaving the scene while trauma is happening, extreme trauma, horrendous things. And that's kind of a mind fracture that is taking place, which is formalized in programs like MK and the Monarch mind control programming. But when it begins early and in the family, it's even more desirable. They have less work to do to get you to where they want you to be an asset for them.
So how did you end up? So you're a Montauk survivor, right? I don't imagine many people survive that program,
No.
Which is so curious to me. So how did you end up? Do you remember a lot of what was taking place during that time? Like, what were they doing? What were they making you do? Or what was the purpose of what they were even experimenting?
Yeah, what was the purpose? What were they doing? And my godfather is a direct link to that. I was taken there about, I was 5 or 6 in Montauk, about 1978, 77. I mean, I was born in 72. Montauk I characterize as a kind of a Holocaust. Of all the projects, and another one I'm going to mention later on when we talk about the moon, they're horrific. I mean, I wish I would not have survived, because what we saw there was, I saw children killed. I saw things we shouldn't be even talking about, but living through, we have to talk about them, because that's how they get cleared from the timeline. That's how we heal and come into light, is not by keeping it in the dungeon.
Exactly.
So do you want me to, can we just jump into that? We can always, we can go back into the Greys and my dad and things like that as well. But would you?
Yeah, that's fine.
You want to go?
No, explain. Yeah, let's get into the Montauk stuff and what they were doing. I think it's important. Yeah.
It is very important. And when those memories started coming up, I was very, it's almost resistant. I wanted to push it away, and I wanted it to be somebody else's memory. Like I kept saying, is this mine? Maybe this just belongs to somebody else. I'm very porous. I work in the world now as an energy intuitive, a seer, and a channel. So anyway, that's relevant to what they wanted me for in all these projects. But when I was taken into Montauk, what is it about? We know it's in part exploring time and different ways that time can be manipulated. But it's also in tandem, we have like Project Paperclip scientists, the Nazi scientists were embedded with that program, the Montauk Project, doing a lot of, they were specialists at mind control. So that's where my formal mind fracturing was happening there. Some people, I think some SSP folks were taken to Area 51 and other places around the country. Mine didn't happen there, it was at Montauk. So there was a lot of, it's trauma-based mind control is what really MK Ultra and more contemporary, it's MK has come under many different umbrellas over time. I think it started as Project Bluebird back in 1950. Then it was, Project MK Delta, Artichoke, so many different names, and then the Monarch programming. But it's all created to fracture the mind further and further and further. So you have a fractured psyche with different programmable parts, different people almost that can do different jobs and not remember what party A and party B are doing. And again, if you're already dissociative tendencies seem to run in my family because of ritual abuse on my mother's side and problems there and what I went through before I even arrived at Montauk. So,
well, how did you actually arrive at Montauk?
Yeah, I believe the only way I can parse this out was through an experience that would be like out of the way we're taken to, let's say, a 20 and back is the same way, like out of space and time. I cannot imagine that they could have taken me back to my mom and dad's house, stuck me, on the front door and said, here's your kid back, like you would, because you're taken so close to death. You're starved, you're kept in the dark, you're kept in cages.
They kept you in cages?
Yeah. It was through my godfather, one of the experiences with the child pornography and events he was taking me to that involved the deep state that I was then, through a dissociative, my dissociative tendency to check out, there creates a weakness in the field, a weakness in the psyche, a weakness, we could even say at the soul level, where it's much easier to take the child in that way. And I think many people who, I've spoken to other experiencers who went through that same thing. I know when we talk about Montauk, we talk about the Montauk boys and they were taking runaway kids off the streets. And I think that's true. Other kids they were taking for using other means, but for different reasons. Most of the kids were very expendable, very expendable. I mean, we were just kind of lab rats for them, and a hideous amount of cruelty and torture happening there. So let me develop this more for you. So
Sure.
with the cages, as you said, often I was kept with many other kids in like metal cages, like a mesh metal was stacked on top of each other. And so you couldn't stand up. And, often in a lab environment, I remember being on the bottom level and seeing, back in the 70s, the polyester pants and the sort of 70s style shoes of a lab tech. And these are humans I'm talking about, walking back and forth and not being able to see what they were going to do or if they were going to come and grab me. But often, too, they would take us out and put us, I remember being in solitary, in a really dank, disgusting environment, deprived of all sensory input. So alone, can't hear, can't see, in the dark. And they would come and that's used to fracture the mind further, because a child that young needs, care and who's coming in and where's mom, where's dad, where's anything, where's food, where's shelter. they would come in and take us out of solitary, and then, I mean, we are diving in deep here. Satanic Ritual was part of Satanic Ritual has been developed within the military as a kind of technology for mind control. So it's not to convert people to Satanism. It's actually a very well developed, very, very long time ago, millennia ago, to reverse the codes of life and to which would be the sacred geometry of the mathematical codes of the life force energy that are within us and within our cellular code, I guess. How do I say that?
It's just anything that goes against the natural process of things. Anything
inversion. It's an inversion, and so that's another. I'd be taken out of the solitary, and we'd be drugged and sodomized before being taken into the. I remember growing up from below. We were kept. We weren't really supposed to be looking around, and we were all really far gone. Kids. Like we were. You can't even imagine. Going up the stairs and taking a left out into the woods, and at night. And on the base, anything could be happening and nobody would know out there. Anything could happen. So I do recall.
Excuse me, where was this base actually? So some people don't know.
It's the old Air Force base at Camp Hero, New York, out at the end of Long Island.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry, I get a little.
It's okay. Thank you so much. I know this is.
Thank you.
This can't be easy for you.
It's good. It's good for me. Yeah. It's gotten easier and easier because the more you speak about it, the easier it gets. I mean, it's never going to be normalized, because we're talking about what we are. I mean, it's very, it's almost beyond words. It's beyond comprehension of how this could happen. What's going on in the human mind that it's so compromised that somehow we think that's okay, or whoever's masterminding this, the Air Force, working with extraterrestrials, working with a lot of pretty wild technology, which I'll also get into. It's really beyond fathomable. It's beyond fathomable. But I remember going back into the rituals. I mean, I remember really a lot of flashbacks came back in and like flooded me in almost a debilitating way this past summer about the colonel. I don't want to say his name, but he's head of the Temple of Set, and he was from late 60s and up and through the 80s, I think, was head of various PSYOPs divisions in the Army. Pointy eyebrow guy. I remember him coming to the base, and he was the one, he and his associates were the ones who were kind of performing the rituals. Michael
Aquina, is that his name?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I didn't even know who he was until it kept flashing. They had done some alternate eye programming, which I can also talk about.
I've heard about that actually.
Yeah, the alternate eye stuff is pretty crazy. I was having a lot of flashes of geometry in my eye, and then I kept flashing with him, and then his face repeated over and over. It kept showing up over a period of days, and then the memories started emerging from that. And I've had some trouble with this left side of my awareness in the left eye. I think because of those times, which is, as I go through my journey and heal, it gets better and better, more integrated. But unbelievable amount, unfathomable, again, amount of people that he has tortured in his life. And what I found interesting is that this memory dump for me came in right after news of his death started circulating on the internet. I didn't even really know who he was. I had to look him up. like, who's the Satanist with the pointy eyebrows? So back in 75, he split off from the Church of Satan with Anton LaVey and started his own temple of Set, a satanic temple. And he really made the rounds with the army. And, probably lots of your listeners are aware of him.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember him very clearly. And I remember those nights where, they took it to the edge. A child would be killed, usually a boy sacrificed and split from his, eviscerated right in front of us. So they would diving right in here. Trigger alert. They would make us consume the glands at times. And that is to reverse the victim perpetrator role, which is very popular in mind control programming. So if the children think that they caused the death of this boy, all the better. So we will go throughout our lives thinking that it was, I was at fault. I caused that to happen. There's a lot of mental, like you said, Tyler, reversing everything. Black is white. 1 + 1 is 3. It's a total mind fuck. And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
So I remember when the boy was I remember not knowing if I was our minds are so fucked at that point, excuse my language, but This is what we're talking about.
Sure.
That I didn't know if I was above the situation looking down on it, or if I was the boy on the altar, and then this part of me inside of me going, I don't want him to die. Maybe I should die instead. Because it poses the children with this question of, I don't want to die, but I don't want him to die. What do we do? I don't want to watch somebody die. So I'm glad we're talking about this. I know it's super heavy. And if your audience hasn't heard of this stuff, they probably have, I'm able to talk about it because I've done a lot of healing around this. It's ongoing,
Sure.
Seeing things that you can't unsee. Like, there's so many things in my mind that I wish I could go back and I kind of want to take them out,
Yeah.
But it's important because if I didn't remember, I couldn't be here talking about it, and then it stays in the dark. So it's, like I said, the satanic ritual abuse is it's a high form of technology, high being well perfected. Like I'm repeating myself, but that can't be understated. And at first I didn't understand, like, why is this embedded in the military? Because it's a mind control technology.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
It's important. Again, thank you for talking about this. And guys who are listening, we apologize. I realize this is heavy, but this is what we're fighting right now. This is what's going on right now on the planet. This is what this is about. We're trying to put an end to this exact stuff. That's why it's important to discuss this. And it's not easy. It's not easy to hear. It's not easy to hear, but it's good to be aware, because once you're aware, now you almost have like a moral obligation to do something about it. And that's how that's where we're going to see the change.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's timely too that it's coming up now, because more and more is going to be revealed. Really. So, I had so many folks. I feel like last year was a landmark year for me receiving emails of like folks, clients, whatever, who were going down rabbit holes at a rapid pace. Wow, it causes a huge, it's just like kind of freak out inside for people when their whole reality of what they believe was true seems to be dissolving, or at least it's getting really shaky. So it's timely that we're talking about this. I know in 2020, more has reached more people about kids in cages being kept in underground bases. And it's certainly, we know, not confined to Montauk back in the 70s. This is going on now. It's been going on for decades and longer with the underground tunnel system and, all over the place. There's untold numbers. I'm sure you've covered that on this show of missing kids.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening to them?
Yeah. Well, it's not just, they're not just going missing on planet, they're going off planet too. And that's what people need to understand. Yeah,
it's finally being dismantled now, finally. But like you said, it's been going on for so long, and it's so much bigger and crazier than anyone can imagine until you start really diving into this rabbit hole. It's just absolutely, I mean, it's inhuman when you get down to it. And that's why most people can't fathom how anyone could do this or how it could go on. It's because there's non-human entities really running the show of it and the planet that, have been, but they're finally being taken out now. So
it's huge. It's really huge. I mean, it's global. This isn't confined to one real area. I mean, it's big in the US, but it's we know it's a global cabal. So
it's important for people to realize this isn't just some crazy guy in his basement doing this to these children.
Yeah,
it's our government. It's literally the government and these black budget programs.
The cabal. Well, it's not even the government, because it's the cabal that's embedded in all governments, basically.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting
that's
it.
above the governments that's really been doing all this.
But they're still pulling the strings.
They're pulling the strings of governments because they infiltrate, is what they do. They infiltrate governments, education,
and individuals.
Every institution. And there's basically what you would think of as demonic entities that are above the Earth human cabal that have been at the top of the pyramid.
Definitely. I was just going to say, well, don't forget about all the off-world players.
Yeah. Draco. We got the Draco and the Greys.
Greys and the Draco prime players. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go on and talk about my mom's family and the Draco genetics a little later. Back to Montauk.
Did you see were there ETs there also, or just humans?
There were ETs. I mostly was interacting with humans. And there were Greys there at some point. I don't have perfect memories about the ETs who were there. I remember, of course, the Greys and the Draco are like everywhere else. I mostly was working with the lab guys, scientists. So the alternate eye programming, I guess I could just say about that is I've already mentioned it, was being, I remember being in they had these rows of little kind of little rooms, tiled rooms, cold metal, cold tile, on a sort of a reclining metal kind of table chair thing. And I was strapped in with these glasses or goggles that were displaying different images in each eye at the same time at rapid pace. And the right eye was murder and slaughter and just awful violence in the right eye. In the left eye was numerical sequences and satanic symbols and lots of code, and also a blue strobe in the left eye. And those are running at high pace at the same time and just leaving you completely I can't even describe, for long periods of time. And I think there's plenty of drugging that goes on too, to keep the child, in a place where the kids aren't screaming all the time, because that would have been a constant thing at Montauk.
It's like they have you at such a dissonant frequency all the time.
All the time. There was a lot of, talking about aliens, like off-world technology, very high-tech stuff going on with the time experiments. And the two things I remember the most are the time tunnel torture tube, I call it. It was sort of a silver bullet is what it looks like, or a very sleek, silver MRI machine that you were kind of stuck into, like a silver coffin. How about that? And it was accomplishing two goals, from what I can tell, was to, it's a form of torture. I felt like they would put me in it over and over and over. And, I had stuff on my head a lot there, but they would turn up the frequency. I don't know exactly the technology that they were using to launch me into different places in time, but also to, they were seeing, I mean, it's all very experimental, one experiment after the other, but also to split my etheric body from my physical body, which should never, ever, ever be done. Because our etheric body template is everything you see of yourself and myself in front of you in energetic format. When I see the etheric template is like a light grid almost, but it has all your information. So splitting them and sending. Go ahead.
I think I've heard you refer to that as like an etheric blueprint.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. It was very painful, very painful. They would do it. They'd turn it up until you blacked out too at some points. But to see how far you would go before you blacked out, but also how they could launch part of you into another beyond space, beyond time, and to explore. They were very into exploring different possibilities of how you could go into the past and then tweak things around, change the future. Could you go into another timeline? Could you create another timeline? And all kinds of like kind of maddeningly like mind-blowing possibilities that they were exploring, and the means to do it. They were, I think, perfecting more and more of a way that would be repeatable in a predictable way. Like, what's the formula? How do we do this? So the other thing they were also doing was seeing within Montauk, they were seeing, well, where will she be good? Will she be good for secret space? Can we make her into an asset out there in space? Or how could she be useful to us in another program? I was earmarked, I believe, before I came in for all of this. And I think I volunteered for it. That's a big... Yeah.
I was just going to say, is there any part of you that thinks like you set this up for yourself before you got
Totally.
here?
Totally.
And then see, I've thought the same thing about some experiences I've had. And I'm like, why the hell would I do that? It's horrible. Some of the things we've been through, but the healing and the lessons that are learned and the growth that comes from it, if you do survive, if you make it through, that's what your soul came here for.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And that's what I think has made me more capable of integrating this and capable of speaking about it without, usually on my videos on my own channel, I'm crying at some point. We'll see how we go here. But I've been able to, I've just moved through things maybe in a little easier way because I understand the larger perspective of the soul. Like, what is this all about? And I will talk about, the Light Alliance ship that, we're jumping all over the place. I want to talk a little bit more on that maybe later, or we could move into that now. But the thing about the soul, thanks. I mean, you brought that up, kind of about, I planned all of this, and some people will take issue with that. In my small self that gets pissed off every time I'm paying my quarterly taxes, like, why the F am I paying my goddamn government? They should be fucking paying me. After surviving all that, like, they use us, spit us back out, broken, completely broken, with programming that takes us into a suicide programming, hoping we'll off ourselves. I mean, and there's still, one of the questions in my mind that I turn over again and again and again is what is justice in all of this? I mean, ultimately there's some kind of cosmic justice and karmic justice that plays itself out. There's nothing further needed, but at the same time, it's like that, like my pissed off, wounded self is like, hey, wait a minute, man. Paying taxes to my government.
I think especially knowing what the tax money actually goes to.
It goes to those programs.
My money is funding this. So I've been like, anyway, that's a long story. The other thing with Montauk, I mean, there was so much crazy experimentation going on. And I remember being especially when I would be taken out of the isolation, when I'd be kept in isolation in the dark by myself, like, oh God. I remember they were taking a substance from me from the endocrine system. Endocrine system is really important to a lot. Human endocrine system is important to a lot of different groups. And they were taking I don't know if it was adrenochrome or an analog of that was gathered from the endocrine glands or something. But they were then taking my genetics, my DNA, and that, which we know creates all kinds of like longevity and things like that can be experienced by those who are using, for example, adrenochrome. But they were creating a hybrid type of being with a blueprint of my mind, my consciousness, wed with this extraterrestrial DNA, my DNA, and amplified with, among other things, this endocrine system fluid, which was taken from me at a time at which I thought I was going to die. That's the most powerful moment for gathering it. Sorry, it's just talking about facts.
We've covered this before, and they even discussed this, I believe, in Above Majestic a little bit.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So I people are aware of it, but we forget about it because it's not something we want to remember. Something I remember you saying in an interview with Nicole is that this adrenochrome was actually sold off planet. It's traded off planet. It's not even just staying here, which is it's scary. It's not just the children, that goes too.
Yeah. Let's get into the galactic slave trade. I mean, the Draco, like I said, probably maybe on Nicole's show, was that the Draco has built part of their empire using adrenochrome. I mean, trading it off world. It's a human adrenaline, human endocrine system. The Greys, lots of different groups. You have uses for our glands and the fluid they produce, our endocrine system in its entirety. It's prized. So if you have something like adrenochrome, might be wanted. You know, we laugh about how some of the ETs want coffee or not coffee, chocolate. You know, like as far as what's desirable, you know, in trade. Well, taking it to a whole nother level if we're talking about something like adrenochrome. So there was a being that I remember that was created using my parts, that it was it had ears like elven ears. I don't know what the being would be called. It was tall and sylph-like, tall and skinny, probably about 8 feet tall, but it would have the capacity to go into explore other realms and never need anything, never stop, and have this immense longevity and have this immense capacity to go and go and go and not, I just want to say, wouldn't need anything, wouldn't need any sustenance. It was a living being as far as I can tell. However, I mean, I've wondered, like in my mind, like, was that an avatar? But to me, it was a physical, they were experimenting with creation of hybrid type of beings for the purposes of exploring timelines, possibilities, and tweaking things. Remember that, you know, the ultimate end of projects, experiments in time, is really about war, and it's about conquest and domination. I mean, there's a sideshow going that is just about exploring what is possible here with time, but it is, remember, this is the military. This is about service to self, and it's about how can we gain control. So that's really if I wanted to talk about the ultimate end of what was happening out there at Montauk, I would say that's a big part of it, is how can we use this in the war arena? How can we use it in an off-world sort of way? And, you know, it just goes on and on from there. There's a lot of nefarious sort of agenda here. We know that.
Yeah.
It's just, we know it, but we don't know the details. We don't understand it fully. We probably never will. You know, you're going off memory recall, but like the people involved I feel bad for in a way. I don't know how these people came to be and why would you ever want to be a part of this? You know, as far as somebody running this program, like they have to be under mind control. I don't see
Well,
anybody willingly doing this.
yeah, I think there is, going back to one of my initial statements, I think there's like what you're saying, mind control, but blackmail happening, and people getting in over their heads, getting really screwed up and not being able to get out. Once you're sworn to secrecy. Nobody working, say, at Montauk is going to be you've got some kind of clearance to be ending up working at a project like that, or anybody in these black ops. My father, I think, was probably mind controlled. I suspect this, and I believe he was working on projects related to control of mass psychology and psychotronics, among many, many other things, over his decades of service with what I just call the deep state military industrial complex. So, he would often say to me, in the year before he died, I was able to kind of grill him a little bit on his clearance work, which I didn't even know he had. This is how blind I was to what was right in front of me. I didn't even know till last year that Dad was working in black budget programs my whole life. I didn't know that. I just knew he had a job we weren't allowed to ask him about ever, and that he traveled a lot. I had found documents after he died, written in his own hand from the 1970s that were related to psychotronics. And he was kind of fleshing out, they had mathematical equations and scientific languaging, but that's what it was about. And I think with Dad, he was in research and development. They would give his company would give him we need you to solve this XYZ, and stick him in his cubicle with a budget and get him to solve it. And he would often say, he said in this last year, he said, I don't know how I solved a lot of the projects they gave me to solve. And I know it's because he was getting downloads from his family, the Grays from Rigel were helping him. I'm quite sure of that, actually.
Yeah.
Far out, right? Like, I'm like, Dad, I know how you were solving that stuff, and it was with off-world help.
So you didn't have any idea as to what programs or what faction he was working for?
Yeah, he was working. One of his umbrellas was with satellite communications, which covers a lot of ground. Communications covers many, many. And if we think about psychotronics, from broadcast from satellite. Oh. So that was one of the things he mentioned I know he mentioned projects he did for NASA and the CIA, going to CIA headquarters, traveling there. He didn't talk specifically about too many things. At the end of his life, I remember in the last days of his life, what he said in hospice was, with regret, he said, "What did I spend my life doing? I was only making black boxes."
Really? Black box.
I don't know exactly what he was referencing. But it was part of what he was doing back in the 80s was just reverse engineering Russian technology, because it was that sort of Cold War time. He was getting, trying to figure out how the Russians were doing certain kind of things. But I know there was a lot more. There's a lot more to what he was doing.
I have a feeling that he might have been referring to a type of voice to skull or voice of God technology. With the psychotronics at the black boxes. Yeah. I don't know. This is the first thing that I thought of.
Well, I've thought that, but I have not, thank you. Yeah. I haven't said it because I don't know exactly. I just,
sure. But that's what that's what they use. That's their tool. That's their tool. That's how they program these people. They literally sit on the other end of this thing, and they can give a person messages through a frequency that's beamed directly, it bypasses the ear and goes straight into the head and you hear the voice. And
it's kind of like artificial telepathy, simulating telepathy. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a very real technology. It's actually been openly discussed on the Army's website that you could actually find the patent.
Totally. Yeah. This is real, folks. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is going on.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the rabbit holes I spent a lot of time on learning about that. And there's no convincing me otherwise that it's not actively used. Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
So where are we at in your story here? I don't know.
We've been jumping around, Tyler. We were talking about Montauk and projects in time and a little bit about my father and godfather. Let's jump into, to set the stage a little more, let's talk about my mom's family. I'm finally at the point where, since I made my own video about this on my channel, I'm much more able to talk about it. It's not quite as horrifying. But I just related to trauma and genetics and things like that, like what made me a target for this stuff. Like I said, I think I was traumatized before I came in within my mother's stomach. My mom being fractured herself through her family. Her father was a reverend who was doing, ritual abuse, involved in kind of old time devil worship sort of stuff. But there's what I call a family entity that I would see at times as a child during different abuse scenarios that I was experiencing, and also a sort of shape-shifting demon that I would sometimes see my mom as a reptilian.
Wow.
Really?
When she would get up, and my mom was violent. My mother had violent episodes which she would not remember, like really getting up into my brother and I, she would, go into a rage and be, hitting us, and then come out of it, during which time I would often see a reptilian eye where, I always thought she just seemed possessed. And because I didn't have language for this when I was a child. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew I was going to get it. And she would come out of it and not know what she had done. She would kind of, it was dissociative amnesia while she was doing it because she was overtaken. And my mom's German. The program's really like certain German lines. And I think it's because, honestly, I think they have reptilian DNA within them, which is very desirable for SSP. If you want to create a super soldier, for example, the Draco is so powerful.
Yeah. There's a book, Secret Journey to Planet Serpo. Sounds like a funny name, but it goes into that exact thing. The reptilian and German connection all the way back, starting in the late 1800s, and the Green Dragon and the Black Dragon Society, how that's tied in also. And so what you're talking about, it makes perfect sense. And they cover it very well in that book.
Great. I'm going to have to check it out because, when I was putting all this together, I thought, am I effing crazy? Like, is this what I see in my family? And it is. I've had my grandfather, her dad, who fractured her and her brother, and her brother's carrying on the satanic stuff. Biggest sadist in the family is her brother, who's in his mid 80s at this point. I couldn't. My grandfather wanted me to stop this, and he wanted me to start talking about it to help bring light into he died decades ago.
Yeah.
But interesting to have a visit from one of the perpetrators, saying, "Forgive me, I didn't know what I was doing. I lost my light. I don't know what happened to me."
That seems to be common with a lot of these people. Once they pass and they come through a medium or somebody and they have a message like, guys, like I'm sorry, I didn't even know what I was doing.
It's like it wasn't them really even doing
it. Wasn't them. There's a lot of possession going on. And that helps me, Tyler. I appreciate you saying that because wading through the stuff in my family, the stuff that's closest to home with my mom and dad is, I couldn't talk about that stuff for a long time. It was so jarring to me, this stuff it's not just some handler from, the military or some, Draco or extra-terrestrial. This is like mommy and daddy, like break my heart, So you grow up in kind of this place of, it feels 1 + 1 is 3, black is white, everything's inverted. Mm-hmm. Because the child, we're all depth to see what's going on as kids, right? Child sees what's going on, but nobody else is corroborating. So right there, you have the schism going on with the child. The child learns to separate from themselves because my reality is not what anybody else apparently sees. Crazy is the reality that we're all agreeing is reality. And you see what I mean? Like, I'm not explaining it very well, but it's just it's a mind fuck, as a child. None of this makes sense. So child dissociates more and more and more and becomes in the process very manipulatable. I believe everybody in my mom's lineage from Germany got, the genealogy has been done back into the late 1700s. There's sexual abuse, ritual abuse going back ways in the family, and I think that creates a propensity to dissociate running actually through the bloodline. But with this, the reptilian DNA, and then the transformation of the entity, the dark entities working in a way that they could open a portal in the whoever they're working with, for that demonic possession to take place, which I always experience as a variety show of shapeshifters. And they were getting to me as a baby, that began for me with my grandfather and then my uncle, and even my mom. They all got their hands on me in that possessed state of completely overtaken by darkness. What that does is make the child a portal itself into a lower realm. And a child, of course, we know a baby is pure light, light. I mean, the thing that the sort of energy that they can take from that is beyond, it's so light, and they can take it, invert it, do many things with it, create a child that is very, I didn't have any boundary. Like, I was completely porous. And I think it allowed for a lot easier handling by, when the Greys were coming in with my father. Greys came in, like I said, around when I was 3 years old, doing genetic sampling and seeing, where are we going to send her? Like I said, it's all predicated before I came in. Where is she going to be of use? And, I have DNA that I would say my heritage is also Pleiadian and Lyran and a variety show. So They want that. We all have certain strands of, star in us.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Very desirable.
The light at the end of the tunnel here for you and this situation, you said this went back in your family through generations, whatever. This is you right now on this show talking, you healing. You're not just healing yourself, you're healing that family, you're healing that family line, that ancestral healing. And you are putting an end to it, because once you heal in this lifetime, it doesn't have to repeat itself again.
Exactly. Thank you. It backfeeds all the way down the line. You're you're backfeeding, light tinkering the timeline all the way back to the start, and on and on and on. And that's part of why I'm here. I often at night before I go to bed, I say I dedicate the merit of my journey to my natal family and the bloodlines. So that this can all be freed, all this garbage.
Well, that's what's happening to the whole planet right now. That's exactly what's happening to the whole planet.
Yeah. So whatever we're working on, anybody who's, watching, anything you're working on in yourself and bringing into light and healing trauma, healing your issues, healing the shadow is, like, as Tyler said, helping your this comes up in my client sessions a lot too. Like, you're not just helping you, it's really amplified, especially right now, the capacity that we have to really affect our the people we came from is remarkable during this sort of gateway that humanity is passing through. Yeah. It's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's very apparent to me that's what's going on here. That's why, that's probably why you signed up for this, to pave the way for a brighter future, because it's time. It's time. Everybody alive right now, incarnated here for this exact thing, for this very moment. Whatever is going to happen in the political arena, all that stuff, that's up for grabs. We don't know. things change in the fog of war. It's changing hourly, daily. So trying to focus on all that becomes very confusing. So we need to do the healing. We need to go back inward and work on ourselves and really accomplish what we're here to do.
So true. Love that you said that. Thank you. I always like bringing it around to light, because there is light. We're talking about the deepest, darkest, most horrible stuff. I'm not even, we're just scratching the surface, here. And it's how we bring in more light. It's how we become unafraid of that. We're on a polarity theater stage. That's what we're playing out. Mm-hmm. And so true. Like when I look at, the agreement I made, why did I do that? To go down into the belly of the beast to understand it. Yeah. Only, it's like to my soul, my unique soul, saying, I will only understand this if I really experience it firsthand. Then I have a leg up on actually helping to end it and bring light into it. Exactly.
Yeah, you can't defeat your enemy if you don't understand how they work, how they operate. You can't take anything down until you understand it. So, you mentioned earlier a White Alliance ship. Am I mistaken?
Yeah. Light Alliance. Well,
Light Alliance. Can we go into that? It sounds nice. Hopefully it is.
Yeah, you want to jump in there? The Light Alliance, I call them. They introduced themselves as a galactic confederation. When I was taken when I was 9, and to some of the times that I was going up to the moon before that, I was also simultaneously being taken into the Confederation ship. I just call them the Light Alliance. So that, it's really far out. And I think I planned this too, so that I would survive, because they, on the Light Alliance ship, which was, as I recall, mostly Procyon, Pleiadian, and Syrian people on it, part of me was being, I want to say, like, safeguarded so that I would not be completely, utterly destroyed. And I feel like I'm still in contact with them. I actually have how do you say? In human terms, we'd call it a husband on that ship, who's with me pretty much every day now. He's from Procyon. And I know that I feel like I planned it to, come in from the ship into Earth, incarnate here, and experience all of this, which also relates to, the Light Alliance was very interested. Remember, this was all back in 70s. I left for Mars when I was 9, so 81. Anyway, they were very interested in what was going on with the galactic slave trade. And through me, they could get a lot of intel. So directly, kind of get a handle on, like what's going on with that, and how do we, again, bring this into light and cease the operations? What do we need to know? And so I think I went like this and went, that sounds cool. I'm going to do that for, I'll send me down to Earth for a while. I don't know. And blessed am I that I have still, I still get to work as a channel. I was wanted basically for psychic operations, mind-to-mind interfacing. And after all my awakening happened, all the psychic stuff started waking up again. And that's what I do as a full-time gig now. I'm very fortunate that I have that, and that I have so many favorable interactions with the light realm, benevolent beings, not just like, the other things I've been talking about and will continue to talk about here. So I feel fortunate in that. Very fortunate.
It only makes sense that it's kind of like you set up an escape plan for yourself you set up protection for yourself to get through that. It's not like we just set up the bad experience. We set up the protection to help us navigate. It's very complex, but I do believe that occurs.
It does. It does. That comes up in my client sessions, and I forget that that's true for me too. Like, you set this up for yourself, but you have the tools and you have the support to get through it. You wrote that into the plan, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You have you're resourced for this. You didn't come into the human journey without capacity here.
So help me understand something about your story here. So you spent time in Montauk. How long was that?
I really don't know, because time is so.
Well, they were screwing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It could have. I feel like it was quite a while, but not like years on end. I think it was probably a year or two. And if they had killed me, they probably would have regened me there. They would have had that technology because they wanted me for the programs later to ship me off world.
And for people who don't know, she said regen. That's like a regen tank. It's like a kind of like a med bed type of technology that you could get killed and basically respawned, regrown, regenerated.
Yeah.
And to think that they were doing this in the 70s, imagine what they're doing now.
Imagine what they're doing. I mean, we've had extraterrestrial technology for a wicked long time. My mate, Tyrion from Procyon, has taken me astrally into these sort of medical pools. It's not quite a med bed, but a regen pool of a benevolent kind that they use on Procyon, that's beyond, it's like underground. And you go into these pools, it's kind of a social situation. People are hanging out at the pools, and it's more of an energetic kind of uplift, and it's what they do for health. So kind of interesting there that this is a thing among other races too. Kind of how we would go to like a hot spring.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that whole these programs can't exist without that technology. Without that healing technology, because otherwise, what good are their experiments if they can't throw you in a regen tank and bring you back? Like, it sounds terrible, but they need that. They rely on that stuff. Just to think that it's there, just waiting for us to grab a hold of it and use
all the technologies that have been hidden. Well, I'm curious, as the world situation unfolds, if we're going to see some unveiling pretty quickly of off-world tech that is needed for certain purposes if things get out of hand. Yeah.
Do you have an incense or something burning, or did I just see something fly by you?
Really?
Maybe on the recording,
I'll
point it out. There was definitely, I don't know what it was. Maybe I'm just seeing things, but we'll
maybe it's a fruit fly.
No, this looked like it looked like
orbs.
It looked like a smoke almost.
Oh, it could be I don't have anything like that going. So maybe you're catching something.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't even mean to distract you. I just couldn't help it.
No, it's great. It's great. If we've got something, then yeah.
Yeah. So what I was getting at, so you went to you spent however long in Montauk, then how did you end up in the programs? How did you end up leaving the planet and making your way to the moon, Mars, then planet X, which is
so things started with me pretty early with the moon. I was, when I was when I was 4, I was taken on a let's say a tour by a Draco of the moon and all the jobs that I would, we're taking you here, and this is going to be, sort of like the trailer introduction to my service. I would call it maybe enslavement and be a better word.
Mm-hmm.
That happened when my mom took me to the Salem Witch Museum, and they had this enactment of how witches were killed back in 1690, whatever, because we lived, we lived close to there. And during the reenactment, I'm a 4-year-old kid, and I think people are being killed in front of me. I had a dissociative moment, left my body, picked up, it sort of presses a button in the mind, let's say a red button, like come and take me almost, when there's this much freak out going on for the kid. So that was a cue for the Draco. Took me on a brief tour of the moon. You will be ours. You will do our bidding, and brought me back into the same moment in time. I remember that time at Salem, like so clearly. They stopped the whole production because I was screaming, and I was taken out into the sunshine. And Salem's a weird place too. That area of the world, holy, yeah, lots of underground tunnels there. Anyway, the moon trips for me started before I was sent to Montauk. I was taken when I was quite small and relatively clean, sort of, right, to the moon to do sort of basic work. And this was happening at night. So I've always had, when I had night terrors like you would not believe. A lot of times that was grays coming in and doing, like, poking around, doing what they do, the short grays. And it's a night terror for me, just to be explaining that, is when I would wake up paralyzed and mute and trying desperately to get away. Those were interferences. They went on into my 30s, and even once in a while, not in recent time, but they were consistent, but very much heavy in my childhood.
Mm-hmm. Same.
I'd be calling out for mom and nobody would come. But anyway, that's how they were taking me in and out from the moon. I'm very clear about that. And it was going to an underground, like it's basically a bus stop. Not necessarily a full-on base, but some kind of underground facility where I was then taken to the moon, strapped into this. I remember being strapped in over my shoulders, and it's like this hyperdrive kind of. I can't explain the technology. The guys could probably say more about that, but ending up underground on the moon. And that went on, back and forth, was like going to a job every now and then. I'd be taken out to go to the moon. And just somewhat disturbingly, I don't exactly know how long each stint was. I don't like that I don't know that. But what I was doing was working as a mind-to-mind interface with, it was a lab that was there, research and development, a lot of experimentation. This was run by predominantly Greys, Draco, and Nazi-allied humans. From what I recall, I interacted mostly with the Draco. I felt like they were sort of my bosses there. And it was, they were doing cloning and more genetic experimentation and splicing DNA from various beings.
This was happening on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. What I will say, and what I understood, in my early interviews, it's so ironic. I said numerous times what I saw there was a kind of hell realm that looked a lot like reports coming out of Dulce, New Mexico. Mm-hmm. What I realized recently, just, in the last couple of months, because I kept saying, could I have been sent there, was that there was a damn gate. You go, some of these portals or these doorways will take you off planet or off wherever you are. It's like you walked into your bedroom and you're somewhere else. So I was actually I didn't know this, sent to Dulce lab, which is another information set or other memory fields that I really resisted, because it's not even human. It's no place that humans are in charge, at least the levels of that facility and that I was at. It was just like beyond what the mind can fathom. And the darkness, again, there was like wicked.
I've heard that
wicked.
about Dulce. I've heard it's the mother of all domes. And they said basically the unimaginable can happen in the true sense of the term, meaning that we actually can't fathom what's going on down there. And apparently some of it's even occurring in other dimensions. It's like really complex what's happening there. And obviously there's a portal system, there's jump rooms.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you thought you were on the moon, but you were really in Dulce? Or
no, I was taken to the moon. So topside operations and the cleaner stuff were going on the moon. And then the real dungeon type of stuff, there's, stuff they couldn't get away with on the moon. This is, fairly, let's say, tidy, all things being relative. The Dulce would be where they would need to do. Dulce is lawless, completely rogue, absolutely anything goes, and it's run by extra. It's run by ETs. Those development labs are not human.
From what I understand, that's like the central hub of the cloning program as well.
Totally. I mean, yeah, like beyond, it's mind blowing, really mind blowing. But that made so much sense. I was like, oh yeah, hey, there was actually a gate. Oh, there was a gate. Yeah. So it was so much of when I started, they start you on sort of easy jobs, especially, I'm pretty little. What would they possibly want me for? Mind to mind telepath, innocent child able to I'm getting data from the beings they've got captive. I'm taking snapshots of all the data within their DNA, transferring it to some part of my head, and then it's being downloaded to the boss computer, right? So it's cataloging all this information of the different beings, and it's also getting intel on their, how are they, what's, anything I could possibly want to know about their history, what their intentions were, what their what are these beings good for? Like what are we going to do with these captors? A lot of times they had a plan, but there was also, within Dulce, my God, pieces and parts, and again, we're back at endocrine system stuff here, Dulce. And human endocrine system and things that they were trying to clone. The Greys have, there's so many variety of gray. I mean, the Greys go off in so many places we probably can't keep track, but in many sort of subspecies, they seem to have congenital defects that they are trying to fix. And I know that was my father's case, and part of why they were tampering with me early on was to get something they could use and that he could use. There's this, anyway, the Greys are trying to figure out how to stop the degeneration of their own biological system. And that's why they're so interested in the endocrine system and what it can do for them. So, when we talk about the cattle mutilations and stuff in the San Luis Valley, that's kind of what they're after, is parts that they might be able to use for themselves. But again, here we go back to experimental beings, like you said, Tyler, cloning. What can we splice and dice, and what is it good for? But it was also, when I was there at this particular part of the moon, it was actually a huge galactic slave trade hub. And so some of the beings, were being traded off world, out of our system. And this was part of what was going on through Dulce and, the beings that could be used as currency, as a kind of trade. Captive beings that, some of what they were doing too was making beings, like, for want of a better descriptor, like more psychic, creating more light codes in beings that didn't have that. So it's just a mind-blowing array of different sort of procedures that they were looking into. And I remember I just remember appearing, like, almost like tiptoeing through this dark place, and there's beings in cages in this there's no light. It's all very, there was just this orangey kind of glow. And I would be going up, and why they wanted me in part was like a kid, me, before I went to get my mind really effed up at Montauk, was just like that sweet innocence. And like, I just wanted to be friends with them, but instead I was there, like, getting their intel and stealing stuff from them. But it was so easy for me to interface because I was a child with them.
Do you think they did anything to alter you, or did you have that natural ability?
Well, I think I had. I mean, I had the ability, but I think they accelerated it somehow to make it more. Like just amp it up. Yeah.
Sure.
And also so I could relay what I was seeing there back into their, computer. So probably, I think implantation probably helping that relay.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of what you were doing too was they were gathering that intel because I think it was Johann Fritz or somebody said that there's really no currency in the
no, there's no currency.
But the currency, but what is just as good as currency is DNA.
Yeah.
It's all about DNA and technology. Everything, all the currency is tech and DNA, period.
Yeah.
So it actually is currency. People they have leverage with a specific DNA from a certain race, let's say.
Totally. Oh God, yeah.
It's just whatever
absolutely
value is currency because there's no money system or anything.
Same here, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. I was also like something about me when I was small, ferrying parts or product back and forth through the gate. I think because of the nature of the vibration of Dulce, I think they needed the innocent child vibration, the light vibration, to help the gate work. So like just escort, okay, bring them in, bring them out, put this here, put this there, just like kind of simple, but it was the vibrational or the frequential information in me that they were looking to use, and other kids too. But it was also on the moon, experimentation on humans, creating AI. And, I had a Draco there say to me, we have everything we need here to create the perfect human, meaning a race of completely controllable slaves.
Sure. And that's kind of what they're trying to do to us, which they're failing at. Which
they're failing. This will not win. This will not win. But
yeah, the message coming through from a lot of people don't trust channelers and stuff, but a lot of psychics and channelers are getting a message like, we don't know what this is going to look like or how it's going to play out, but we know that they don't get away with it. They don't get away with it. Like something happens.
Well, yeah. Well, I think underwriting maybe the script of our whole our duality play here on the stage of Earth is written at the light. We go back into what I call the ancient future from Lemuria and the more ascended elements of Atlantis. It's all written in us. We're just kind of playing this out, regardless of what the surface war happens to look like right now. And I think our purpose here is really developing our consciousness. Of course.
What's incredible to me is that we've been talking for over an hour now, and you're still at age 5. And like we haven't even gotten into the adulthood of what you've experienced. Yeah. And we have more time now. I just thought that was interesting. I just thought I was like, man, like, and
well, they did take, it was only a few more years before they took me to Mars. I was only 9 when they took me to Mars. So,
Yeah. So we'll talk, let's discuss a little more about the moon and we'll wrap this first part up and then we'll in part 2, we will get into Mars and then the Planet X stuff, which I'm really, really curious about. And obviously there's a bunch more packed in between there. So on the moon, okay, you were remembering experiences at Dulce and the moon, and this took place for a few years from like 5 to 9, and then 9. What happened? Do you remember like your daily life?
Fits and starts. It was in fits and starts there. So I really feel like I don't remember them keeping me, like, I don't remember having like a bedroom, like hanging out there for, years on end. It was more sporadic.
Okay.
Yeah. I just remember, and I was a child, I was young. So of course it would have seemed huge, but both facilities seemed so enormous. like you just get lost and never know the full extent of what was going on there. So
where on the moon would you say the space is located?
Yeah, it was in the back. I mean, obviously the back side of the moon and the upper, if you're standing and looking at the back side of the moon, it's on the upper left quadrant toward the center line. So
if we're looking at it from the front side, it would be like the 3 o'clock position on the back.
It would be like more like 1:30, but kind of in toward the main line, the axis,
Okay.
you know.
Sure. I'm just trying to help people who are looking at the moon. They want a visual, like they can imagine this is on this side, this place on the other side. And this facility, did it have a name? Do you remember any of that stuff, or you just knew it was a place you went?
I don't. And I mean, I could guess, but I don't know, because this also seems like a bit of rogue element. You know, there's a lot of bases back there. This was definitely German. This was, I mean, if we talk about the human agency behind it, very much German. So, and then, like I said, the Greys there and the ETs. But I don't know. I feel like I should know, but that's what's maddening. Like, you never show up at a place and they give you papers and say, you're here, you're going to be this, sign on the dotted line, or there's no neon sign, that says, and I don't want to just guess. I'm not, I'd rather say, I don't really know.
Yeah, that German presence is really interesting. It's the common theme among every whistleblower.
Totally.
Their presence in space is pretty vast. And going back to the German Draco connection, that's important to understand. And then not only the German Draco Chinese connection that goes back to the Black Dragon and the Green Dragon Society, who were allegedly channeling reptilians that were residing in a base beneath their feet in this cave system. This is going way, way back. But now we know. Now it kind of gives you an idea of why the CCP is who they are, and then why the Germans tie into that. And it's also important to understand that not all reptilians are Draco. They aren't all bad.
There's so many races of reptilian, and to add on to that, I would say not all reptilians or even all Draco are negative. So, I mean, I have a Draco aspect of self, my galactic self. Sometimes when I'm sitting in meditation, she opens up on my left side, and it's a white Draco with small wings, and it's have like this pastel light in the eyes, and it's very elevated. I've had that family come to visit me, and when this started opening up for me, I was very like, oh, what's that? Reptilian, what is this? Are you coming to steal my life force, or what are you doing here? I was very like, okay, hang on, what is going on? Because it opens up experientially, first on the left side of my body and then in the right, and I can feel it and I can see it. And it's really equanimous and stable energy and very upper dimensional energy. And when I want to say, like, my mother from my mother, Draco mother, I don't know, come to me the first time, I mean, I wept. And it was her field. All of them in this particular family have a signature, like we're this sort of luminous white, but then there's a signature, like I see with like a cerulean color around me in the field. And then she has this more blue color. There's just these minute differences that denote one from the other. And her name is Tia, and she's with me. She has language. It's very different that comes through me. When I ask my guides about this, how does this relate with the regressive reptilian in my bloodline? I was told that I changed the DNA, and I went, what? Did you say? I had to look it up. I was like, what? Can we change our DNA? And fair enough. I had to go do some research, DNA 101 for dummies. Not exactly, but I was like, wow, are you kidding? So from the work that I've done, I have changed the DNA in the line. So that goes back to what you were saying about you're clearing the bloodline. I'm like I am clearing the bloodline.
Yeah.
So that's my wrap on that. I wanted to share that. It's an important point. There's tons of reptilians. They're not all negative. And in fact, this group of the lighter white Draco, I think what I have been shown is that they came millennia ago in the Draco Wars over to Lyra and were subsumed by the lighter Lyran culture, this particular group, which is rather anomalous. So there is a Lyran connection there. Anyway, I wanted to just sharing a light inside of all this darkness.
No, it's a good point to make. It's a good point to make because when half of the planet doesn't even know what a reptilian is, right? So when people start waking up to this, they have to realize, like when I first came into this, reptilians were all bad. I didn't think about there being good ones because that's all I was learning about was the negative aspect of them. So I like that we get to cover. It's just like humans aren't all bad.
It's so like the races are so like that. I mean, I even think, there's probably grays out there that aren't all, service to self. I haven't met them yet, but they probably exist. I've had different interactions with different reptilian groups and they can be very light. They can be gentle. They can be nurturing. And we've got like, some of them are very ancient and very wise, almost, I want to say like a grandfather or something. So, you have to use your discernment. And as a channel, I'm always having to pause and go, okay, read the signature. Like, don't go with what your cognitive mind, what your conceptual mind is leading you into, reptile, fear. But be discerning, be careful, but learn to read the energy signature. That's where you find all the information that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this first part. We'll go ahead and let people know where they can find you if they want to learn more. And I know you do readings. Explain to people what you do.
Yeah, I do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. People can order inner child healing and channeling sessions with me, galactic attunements. If you're wanting to work on your own story of maybe you've got something similar to me, we can look in your Akashic records and find out what's been going on for you. And also personal light language channeling sessions with me. So lots of things on my website. That's RebeccaRoseBarfoot.com. And is that below?
It will be. It'll be in the description. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. So guys, we know that was heavy. That was a lot to take in. We apologize if you weren't ready for that, but it's necessary. And obviously there is a light at the end of the tunnel here. So, and there's so much more to discuss. We barely got into.
There's so much more. I'm like, wow, we haven't even gotten into it.
Yeah. So, thank you for tuning in to part 1 and stay tuned for part 2. We will be back in a few days. Good night.
Okay.